lovers, Jen here with a short review for you of The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black. This is a bit of an older book. Let me check the publication. So 2013, so going on probably like 5 years old. And if you have not read Holly Black before, she kind of writes like urban fantasy. And one of the first books I read of hers, or actually the first book I read of hers, was The Darkest Part of the Forest. So I'll put that video at the end of this one if you want to see that review. And I really, really loved it, so I decided to get The Coldest Girl in Coldtown. Whereas The Darkest Part of the Forest talked about fairies, this is about vampires. And I'm not talking about the kind of fluffy, romanticized vampires. I think less Twilight and possibly more Interview with a Vampire, even though I've never read those. I think that's the kind of vibe that it gives off. Basically, Coldtowns are, there's like a vampiric outbreak, and Coldtowns are where people go and they either become full-fledged vampires or they can be kind of immune, but they have to like sweat out and fight out the infection. And then other people go who are like obsessed and who do romanticize vampires. They try and go to the Coldtowns to either, you know, be a food source or to get turned themselves. And basically these Coldtowns are kind of almost like shanty towns. Think like all night raves, but then once the sun rises, everything's like trash everywhere and like dirty and gross. And so Springfield ends up being one of the first Coldtowns in the US, and essentially these Coldtowns have like live feeds, so there's a lot about the reality TV and misconceptions in this book. The protagonist is Tana, and it opens up right away with, if you've read Holly Black's, I don't know if this is consistent in some of her other books, but was in The Darkest Part of the Forest, kind of partying, high school aged kids. And she wakes up, you know, in a bathtub at a party. And when she goes downstairs, she finds that everyone is dead except for her ex-boyfriend, because someone left the window open and the vampires got in despite like all their charms, like rose oil and things like that they tried to use. So it's really gory, and I'm not a fan of gore. If you know me, I don't like that. However, this story is so good that I was willing to overlook that, and that's really kind of rare for me. I just needed to know what happened. I would read 100-page chunks at a time, and this is a fairly, it's like 450 pages I think, or like 410 or something, so it's a fairly large book, not huge. And the character is Tana, and she is just really intriguing, and there's flashbacks to when her mother was infected and what happened. There's little pieces, some chapters, it's all third person, but there are some chapters that are her sister's story. Tana ends up meeting a vampire named Gavriel, with a V instead of a B, and there's backstory for him in here, and he is amazing. He is by far my most favorite character in this book. I would love a sequel. I don't think it's going to happen because the book has been out so long. Like, it ends on a standalone note, but I wouldn't complain if there was more of Tana and Gavriel in another book. I did like this so much that I went ahead and ordered the Tithe trilogy. I know Holly Black has another book called, I think it's called like the Curse Workers trilogy or something. But I haven't gotten hold of that. I found a great price on Tithe on Thrift Books. If you don't use their app or their website, they have good deals. Usually on older books, it's often hard to find newer ones. But she does have a book coming out January 2nd called The Cruel Prince, which is the start of a new Fae series. So I do plan on pre-ordering that as well. And in my opinion, Holly Black is just an amazing storyteller. I didn't realize, I think I realized sometime during The Darkest Part of the Forest, I may mention it in that video, that I didn't realize she had written the Spiderwick Chronicles, which I read many years ago, not when I was a kid, like when I first started teaching, or kind of like in the middle of my teaching career. I gravitated toward looking at things like the Spiderwick Chronicles. Oh man, I can't think of the other series. There's another series where the books are like kind of smaller than normal. And I was looking at Artemis Fowl. I want to call the other books like The Land of something. but I can't remember off the top of my head for some reason. And I hadn't realized that the Holly Black was the one and the same, and I remember really enjoying those at the time. So if you like dark fantasy and you like urban fantasy and you just like really good storytelling, I suggest you check out Holly Black because I've been really impressed with her books. And then maybe I'll have you reading and have you read.